Okay, so the second joint practice against the Browns didn't exactly go how we may have hoped, with Joe Flacco shredding the defense and Cleveland receivers pretty much embarrassing whoever was guarding them. However, when you dig into the details from day 2, it wasn't as bad as you might have been led to believe. And in this video, I'll get you caught up on everything you may have missed from camp, look ahead to the upcoming preseason game, and go over some surprising news for the Eagles' Week 2 opponent. So let's talk about that and everything else around the Birds. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? The Eagles' second preseason game is right around the corner, which I'm going to be streaming for, by the way, so feel free to come hang out. But also, I'm going to be giving away any jersey of your choice for that game. All I need you to do is drop a like on this video and then go down to the comments section and enter the player that you think will score the first touchdown in that game. By the way, that goes for either team, so just pick one player from either team and enter their name in the comments. Where if the Eagles win, then I'm going to choose one lucky subscriber to win any NFL jersey of their choice at the end of the stream.
There's no guarantees. I got a better idea.
Alright, fine. It's the preseason. Who really cares about who wins the game? So I'll probably just give away a jersey to whoever picks the correct first touchdown score. After all, if we're going based on the latest joint practice, then Philly might struggle a bit against Cleveland. Since the offense wasn't really in sync most of the day, the O-line was getting shredded, and the Birds' secondary was what several in attendance called reminiscent of 2023.
Anything but this.
Look, they're getting in the work, and this is what practice is for. Plus, on the offensive side, you had Lane Johnson getting rest day, Saquon Barkley getting rest day, Landon Dickerson already out with an injury, and A.J. Brown out with his hamstring injury. I mean, I know Philly has a dominant offense, but taking away arguably 4 of the best 5 guys on any offense is going to hurt any team's effectiveness. Of course, for those that may have missed it, I'll get you caught up on the Eagles' abbreviated session versus the Browns. And I say abbreviated because the Eagles and Browns practice managed to last just 66 minutes, thanks to it being an incredibly hot day and the coaches hoping to keep the guys fresh for the preseason game Saturday. Granted, A.J. Brown was never going to play in that one anyway, but it was a little unusual to see him go from listed as out to limited and then back to out over the last week. Something that the Inquirer reported as not being any kind of setback to AJ's hamstring and just Philly using some extra precaution. Although when Nick Sirianni was asked about it, he wouldn't really confirm.
Did AJ have a setback? Yes. Did AJ have a setback? Is that why he didn't practice?
Yeah, again, our goal is to get all these guys ready to and be firing all cylinders when the season hits. And so, not going to get into too much of that stuff. He's working through some things, and he'll be back out there when he can.
Not gonna lie, hearing that, Sirianni's takeaways there, but it does make you wonder if AJ actually did have a setback. Yet when it comes to the panic or worry people want to throw out there, seeing that the 28-year-old missed 3 games last year due to another hamstring injury, there's really no reason to worry.
If there's anybody in the world I'm not really concerned about, it's that guy. He's pretty good at doing his job and getting open.
By the way, just in case you weren't aware, up until before last season, AJ had only gotten a hamstring injury once, causing him to miss 1 game with the Titans. So even if he did experience a little bit of a setback, I'd caution against getting all worked up for this being some sort of trend for the All-Pro. Worst case scenario, you keep AJ out until week 1 and he'll more than be ready for Dallas. Remember, last year, Mr. Always Open put up 119 yards and 1 touchdown in the season opener against the Packers, then missed 3 games due to the hamstring injury, but didn't miss a beat in his first game back against Cleveland in Week 6. FYI, I'll jog your memory if you can't recall, but his numbers in that game were 6 catches on 9 targets for 116 yards and 1 touchdown. Like for some players, sure, maybe they need some time to shake off rust or get back in a groove, but for a guy like AJ, that's not the case. Which is why I 100% agree with what Sirianni said. There's no need to rush anything and just want to get the guys healthy for week 1. And as crazy as it might sound, it feels like Landon Dickerson will be back for the season opener as the big man was back walking on the field 1 day after surgery to repair his torn meniscus.
Landon, you kind of got to tell him to slow down rather than get going. So it's good to see him out here, but at the same time, you need to be smart and take his time.
That guy's just made of rubber. Man, he's just made of rubber. It doesn't matter what injury he's going through during the game. He's just going to keep pushing through, and it's inspiring. It's very inspiring because then I hurt a finger or I hurt a toe, and I'm just like, that hurts. And he's playing out there with 1 leg, 1 knee, and he's just like, all right, you got to toughen up. And man, it's just, I don't know what it is. Something different about him.
Obviously, we've talked about this the last couple days, but I do feel like the Eagles are going to be smart. They're not going to rush him back too quickly. The importance of Landon's long-term health far outweighs anything short-term, so if he misses week 1, we're going to be okay even against Dallas. Even if it's a week 2, you take your time, it'll be fine. Because you can't be too careful, something Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski said about rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders, who was sidelined with a strained oblique during the final joint practice. In fact, Stefanski later said it's pretty unlikely that Sanders will play in the preseason game. Although rookie Dillon Gabriel is still questionable for Saturday with his hamstring injury, and it appears Kenny Pickett is doubtful with his hamstring injury. So if neither can play, then the Birds will be forced to take on 2022 Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley, as the Browns confirmed he would play the entire game if that's the case. Which, okay, they'll still get some good reps in, but it would have been nice to see them play against Shedeur or heck any of the players or quarterbacks that torched them in the last practice. Again, it makes sense for the offensive struggles, but not so much for the defensive side, at least when it comes to the injury report, because just about all the main guys were available. As the players not practicing were A.J. Brown, like we talked about, the hamstring, Landon Dickerson, Kenyon Green with a shoulder, and Lane Johnson due to rest. Also, safety Lewis Seen was out again due to a groin injury, and I really can't envision he's going to end up making the roster with the limited reps he's already not had and the injury now keeping him out of the next preseason game. And then when it comes to the limited participants, Saquon Barkley was out due to rest, and Zach Bond is still taking it easy with his back. However, it was nice to see wide receiver Elijah Cooks back and getting some reps in after being out for quite a while due to his shoulder injury. Although I can't blame him. Heck, after hearing Darius Cooper and Johnny Wilson getting hyped up the past few days, along with Terrace Marshall returning and Aniyah Smith making a push, my shoulder would probably start feeling better too.
What do you mean, take my job?
All things considered, the Birds have been pretty fortunate with injuries and guys missing time so far.
The last thing we need is bad luck. Quick, toss some salt over your right shoulder.
Sorry, not trying to jinx it or anything, but I'm just saying when you compare the Eagles to other teams, especially the early ones they play in their schedule, they're sitting pretty good. For example, you got Kansas City, who could be without wide receiver Rashee Rice for the first 4 weeks, which obviously includes the Eagles game. Now, you may have heard Rice is expected to have his disciplinary hearing with the NFL on September 30th, according to Adam Schefter. And yeah, if that happens, then Rice would be present in Week 2 versus the Eagles. However, further information on Rice's case revealed that the NFL and NFLPA could still reach a settlement on a potential suspension before the scheduled hearing. Since the disciplinary officer, Sue Robinson, has only heard one case in the past, with that being Deshaun Watson, so it's very likely that the NFLPA will be willing to work out a deal. Granted, all still up in the air right now, but it is something to keep an eye on for the relevancy to Philly. Meanwhile, something that's more certain is that the Cowboys are without one of their starting tackles in Tyler Guyton and without guard Rob Jones. So there's definitely an impact for Week 1. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers appear they'll be likely without starting left tackle Tristan Wirfs for the first 4 games of the season. Meaning, yes, he would miss the Week 4 matchup against the Eagles. So like I say, the Birds are in a pretty good spot, all things considered. Anyway, enough on that though. Let's get into practice, break down all the takeaways from the final joint practice. So the outside corner duos to start the day were first team Quinyon Mitchell and Adoree Jackson, with the second team being Kelee Ringo and Mac McWilliams. Leaving Anthony DeBona to pose the question that I will also ask you now, did Howie Roseman make a mistake at cornerback 2? I mean, think about it. All Howie had to do was re-sign Isaiah Rodgers in free agency at the price of $11 million for 2 years, and Philadelphia could have avoided the uninspiring competition altogether. Instead, now we're seeing rookie Mac McWilliams also starting to play a lot more at the outside cornerback spot after strictly playing slot to start training camp. Come on, if the Birds had had their guy, it would be obvious by now. Yet here we have 3 to 4 guys at least all fighting it out for the second cornerback spot.
How the hell we get ourselves into this?
I gotta believe the confidence in Kelee Ringo is what made them pass on Isaiah Rodgers, but man, it would be really nice to have Zay. You're right though, it doesn't do any good to keep living in the past. Plus, like a lot of the Philly dogs, they've proved the doubters wrong, so I'm not totally giving up on Ringo yet. But on that topic, getting you caught up to date with the latest cornerback competition, it was Adoree Jackson's day on Thursday, as he took almost all the first team reps there. Now, it was a fairly heavy run day for the Browns, so he wasn't tested too often. Although Jackson did allow a completion to Jerry Jeudy down the left sideline when he tried to undercut the pass. And then later, Ringo gave up a play as the offense for the Browns tried a little trickery. Once on a halfback pass across the field, and secondly on a hook and ladder on a 2-point conversion, with Zach Berman noting the Eagles were caught off guard both times. And yeah, while that's not great at all, it's no doubt something that'll be used as examples in the film room. Of course, to be fair, while there's still no separation for the second cornerback spot, basically everyone in the secondary struggled. Not kidding, it was really all across the board, as Joe Flacco went 7 for 10 with 2 of the Browns' 3 touchdowns on the day. The first one being given up by Quinyon Mitchell on a slant to Jerry Jeudy across the middle, followed by Cooper DeJean allowing a touchdown to Jamari Thrash. And then heck, even Reed Blankenship trailed tight end David Njoku in a coverage on a touchdown that really ignited the Cleveland sideline after his celebration. It's just unfortunately the Eagles' offense didn't do much to quell that momentum, with Jalen Hurts going 2 for 6 on the opening drive and being extremely limited. Again, kind of a given, goes without saying, but life's a little bit more difficult without Landon Dickerson, without Lane Johnson, and also subbing in a lot of different guys, which is apparently what they did on the offensive line. Plus, it only gets about 10 times worse with a guy like Myles Garrett on the other side.
Oh, God, help us!
Look, Myles Garrett is insane any day of the week, but on Thursday, according to multiple beat writers, he was just on a completely other level. I mean, seriously, every single time apparently he was getting through could have basically sacked Hurts, and he thankfully just kind of held off to let them keep running the play, but he was a nightmare. For the record, Garrett twice maneuvered past Jordan Mailata for sacks despite the left tackle being in perfect position, and then actually ended up getting Mailata to commit a false start after beating him multiple times. But come on, there's only so much you can do against Garrett.
Just being a football fan, it's fun to watch him just move. You know? He's an alien out there. Just watching him move, it reminds me of like a predator with some ice skates running through the grass.
There's no one like Myles. So you can't apply what Myles does to anyone else because he's just a freak. He's a freak.
Yeah, no, but like, what do you gain personally out of watching those reps?
I get a giggle. I get a giggle out of it. I'll be honest. I'm just sitting there like, I did my fucking job. Oh, sorry. I did my job. And yet, I still got beat. How is that even possible? How is he still at below my knees and he's bending the corner? He starts the rush, in a 4-point stance, and by the time he's 4 yards upfield, he's still at that same height. And it's kind of like, oh, what am I supposed to do there? Just jump on him? Not even that's possible. He'll just carry me to the QB. Guy's a freak. But like I said, man, when you go up against the best, so that's enough glazing for now. Sorry, guys. When you go up against the best, you're able to, learn from the next rep. And it was kind of just like this lose, win, lose, 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 win, lose, 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 win. That's just how it felt like. And, I just kept on saying, keep it pushing to the next play and keep trying to just do your job, and then we'll fix it up later.
I think we're all on the same page. Stopping Garrett is an impossible task, especially when you don't have your starting right tackle and your starting left guard. However, the other guys were getting through as well, like defensive tackle Mason Graham, who registered a sack, defensive end Cameron Thomas picked up a sack, and defensive tackle Malik Collins pressured Hurts, along with linebacker Jerome Baker blowing up a designed run play for Jalen Hurts. Yet while they struggled early, give the Eagles and Kevin Patullo some credit because they were able to make some adjustments to account for the extra blitzes they faced on Thursday, as they eventually went with an up-tempo offense focusing on short passes to the running back, with Brooks Cabina pointing out Will Shipley clearly showing his prowess as a pass catcher, like on one rep where he snagged a pass along the left sideline to stay in bounds, followed by a hard cut to shake a defender and catch a pass on an out route for a first down, which according to Saquon is just what he does.
He got great hands. I think he's probably the best route runner out of all the running backs on our team, and he has a great feel for seeing coverages too. So probably sure that stems from the stuff he did in college, but it's definitely something that can help take the team to another level.
Man, the running back room is so fun this year. Between Saquon, Shipley, A.J. Dillon, I can't wait to see how they split up the workload. And look, getting the running backs involved seemed to open things up later in practice, as Hurts was then able to connect with Dallas Goedert in the flats, before hitting Devontae Smith over the middle to move the chains. But the Browns' defense eventually stiffened in the red zone, where they forced a third down from the 10. That is until QB1 found newcomer wide receiver Darius Cooper on a slant for an A.J. Brown-like touchdown. Not gonna lie, for a dude that we've been referring to as mini A.J. Brown, that's pretty cool to see because, come on, if anybody else is gonna catch a slant route for a touchdown, it's gotta be Darius Cooper. Plus, I don't have to tell you, but to get targeted like that and trusted like that by Jalen Hurts when the pressure's on says a ton about his chances of landing on the roster. By the way, the Eagles did go up-tempo in their final red zone series as well, but Hurts failed to connect with Devontae on an end-zone fade against Denzel Ward. And to be honest, the pass lacked a little bit there and was not as sharp of a day as you'd expect or like to see from Jalen. Still, nothing to worry about, but it did look like Cleveland was the team that wanted it more on Thursday. Because while that was happening on offense, the secondary of the Eagles was getting cooked by Joe Flacco. However, the positives to come from this was that the run defense put up one of their best performances of training camp, as multiple beat writers noted Jeremiah Trotter Jr. would be at the top of that list on Thursday, thanks to the 22-year-old seemingly always being in the right place at the right time. Seriously, you can see him fill the gaps on running plays, and he clearly knows the defense. Which makes sense and is why everyone says he's not going down without a fight with Jihaad Campbell for the other linebacker's starting spot, but it feels like, we continue to say this, it's really only a matter of time. Jihaad Campbell is going to be your starter. Because according to a couple Browns reporters, Jihaad Campbell stands out on Philly's defense like Myles Garrett does in Cleveland's. Okay, maybe just a little less than that, but his athleticism earned him the descriptor of freak, with Myles Garrett seeking him out afterward to share some tips.
Really just two freaks, talking to each other. He's a great guy, man. We're in the same agency together, so, it was a good, little mojo, just catching up with each other. And, just talking about, habits, finding a routine, especially me coming in as a rookie and, just honing on, who I am as a person, just being who I am and, always staying that way and just working hard.
It was interesting, but Fangio actually had Jihaad playing more on the edge Thursday as he came up with a sack on Flacco. And then later, he was in really tight coverage on the tight end Harold Fannin, causing him to drop the ball at the goal line. But like I said, it was not the best day overall for the defense. Still, though, if we're going individual winners, guys that really stood out, you would say Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Jihaad Campbell, and Sidney Brown. Since not only did Brown take the vast majority of first-team snaps at safety, but he showed his ability to get downhill, close the gap, and finish with some physicality. For the record, Zach Berman noted that it might have been a little too physical for some Cleveland players' liking, but when it comes to a player who can potentially set the tone, that is definitely Sidney Brown. And I'll give you an example of that. So shout out to Andrew DeCecco, but he said on multiple occasions, Sidney blasted running back Dylan Sampson to stop the play for a loss, and then even forced a fumble toward the end of a later play. Meanwhile, in pass coverage, Sidney got over to tight end Harold Fannin Jr. as he timed the hit perfectly to make sure he couldn't hold on and prevent a score. Now look, I wouldn't say that the safety battle is over, but it's definitely a lot more of a lock than whatever we have going over at the cornerback spot. Having said that, rookie Drew Mukuba did pick off a pass at the end of practice, albeit it was from an easy drop from a Browns receiver, yet Mukuba did also give up a touchdown to Fannin Jr. on a rep prior to that. Anyway, as for the pass rush, I don't think there's any questions to their effectiveness. Given the fact that Nolan Smith came around the edge and back inside for a sack against Flacco, along with Jalyx Hunt likely picking up a would-be sack, and later Josh Uche made his presence felt with multiple pressures including a sack on Dylan Gabriel. Yet it didn't stop there because Uche also had an impressive run stop, followed by drawing a holding call on Browns left tackle DeJuan Jones. By the way, the interior D-line of Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Moro, Ojomo, and others didn't really make as many highlight plays. However, anytime you get praise from a 7-time Pro Bowl guard like Joel Bitonio, that is saying something.
Their whole interior, 97 is a good player too, young player ascending. But all three of those guys are great players. They play hard. I think Jalen Carter obviously was one of the best D tackles in the game last year, and Jordan Davis has slimmed down and is playing hard. So it's a good challenge, but it's great to do it in practice where you can try something. If it doesn't quite work right here, not to try that in the game.
How about Moro Ojomo, who Landon said has kind of an awkward build in the best way possible, long arms and all that?
Yeah, it's what I was 97 referring to. I couldn't pronounce his name, so I didn't want to butcher it, but I appreciate that. No, I got to go against him a bunch. He's, like you said, he's for his size, really long arms. He's pretty powerful. I think his key is how hard he plays and how good he knows the game. He's on the backside of a play. He's not going to stop, runs games well. And he has more power than you think. He's probably 290 or 295, but he'll bring a bull rush as well.
It's blatantly obvious at this point. The front seven of the Eagles is going to be insanely good. The question just becomes, can they fill in a couple of those spots within the secondary? The few red flags there, how much is it really much of a concern? But the front seven is going to get the job done. Although I'll also offer a little bit more of a silver lining for people saying getting beat by the Browns in day 2 of joint practice is all doom and gloom. Remember, Cleveland was actually one of the teams that gave us a challenge last year. Now sure, their offense was terrible, but their defense kept them in the game and basically shut down Saquon. So without some of the starters I mentioned and shifting guys around to different spots, I don't think there's any reason to worry. But curious to hear what you guys think. How are you feeling after this, the second joint practice, and what do you want to see on Saturday during the preseason game? Oh, also on a lighter note, I did get a kick out of Landon Dickerson bringing out some Miller Lite for the O-lineman as a peace offering of sorts after practice. Something the Browns also appreciated.
It looked like a Gatorade can to me, but no, it was a nice gesture. The O-linemen suffer together sometimes, so it's always a bond. Even on other teams, we respect each other's games and stuff, so it was a nice gesture.
By the way, one other quick takeaway when it comes to Ben VanSumeren. First off, he's a madman on special teams, as he collected multiple stops during those periods, and is a guy Michael Clay said he heavily relies on. Plus, BVS made a catch in team drills and was targeted multiple times while playing fullback. Although there was one hospital ball Jalen threw to him in the flats that would have set up almost identical to the Sheldon Brown hit had actual live tackling been allowed. So fortunately, he didn't take the punishment nearly as bad, but I would say his involvement is 100% a lock that he makes the roster. Anyway, let me know your guys' thoughts on all this. Appreciate you as always. We just passed 135,000 subscribers, so thank you for that. Make sure to comment. First touchdown score in the game Saturday. I'll catch you guys on the stream. Until next time, this has been the Philly Special.
Like I should feel like